because nothing costs $1 anymore. So you 2 pennies each time you go up $1. Louise, okay, you do the fucking math in your head. Hi. Good evening. Welcome back to Late Night with Us. I was just reading Georgine Titano's Facebook page, and Mona Fernandez posted and tagged Georgine Titano. She said, and this is about Bobby Ho, of course. Hoes love posting about stealing another bitch's man, but won't post the STD she caught while the robbery was in progress. Love. And then Georgine, after that, wrote, how come when you catch someone lying, they be madder than you? And then the 100 thing, and then the double fuck you emoji. And then it's always in the comments, by the way. In the comments. So I wrote something really boring. I was like, that's the mark of a pathological liar. And then we go like back and forth with boring. And then Paco Vanessa Bermudez wrote, that's a super doc and fuck. Dick be in their mouth. And she says, no, I'm not sucking his dick. I love this shit. And then Georgine posted on Monday, I have 2 best friends I go to for advice. One rationalizes, uses logic, and the other one hypes me up to do ratchet shit. Balance. I don't have that balance. I have friends who hype me up to do ratchet shit. That's all it is. And then with the, I don't know if you can see this, but here's Georgine flipping the bird. Just one bird though. With her bling bling. And then it says, like the heart says no thanks. And then she has hashtag right back at you boo. I'm gonna find out what this is about, by the way. Right back at you boo. Hashtag why not your double jointed fingers. Hashtag fuck you challenge. Hashtag fuck you you ho. I'm gonna use it. Fuck you you ho. So anyway, earlier today, I was at the Chamorro Land Trust work session where they're going over the rules and regulations, and I saw Rindradi Celis Limtiaco's poor husband, Steve Limtiaco, who has to live with her. And do we have that picture of Steve? Steve Limtiaco, he's a reporter at the PDN. Now, Steve has earned this honor since he's a fucking asshole. And though I do kind of feel sorry for him because he's married to Rindradi. And like, you have to think about this. If you were married to Rindradi, you'd walk around like you had to stick up your ass too, because that bitch has probably emasculated. She has your balls like stored away in a jar, like in one of those places, those storage container places, and then he has to answer her phone call on extension 419, and she's like at extension 100 because she's the boss. She's been the boss she's the boss at home, she's the boss at work. He has to see her fat ass all the time. And so it's like, Steve, my heart goes out to you, from former Archbishop Anthony Aperon to you. Go fuck yourselves. Now, this is the 23rd day of Butterball Turkey brining, and it is the 23rd day since James Hubert, former chairman of the Guam Chamber of Commerce and very close friend of Rindradi Limtiaco, he crashed his car into the Akonta Mall, reversed, crashed his car into a bus stop that had a person in it, injured the person, and it has never appeared as a news story in the PDN. So we're just gonna keep counting this on until someone at the PDN grows some ethics. And it's kind of funny when you talk about ethics in journalism, because when I was at the governor's office, it was always funny. You'd have KOAM, PDN, PNC, and the Post, and then at one point it was the Variety, right? And all the reporters, sometimes at the governor's office we'd have like merienda, there'd be food or coffee, drinks or whatever, right? And like everyone from all the other news stations, there'd be good food at the governor's office, and we'd be like, hey, come and eat, and they'll all eat except the PDN reporters. The PDN reporters would be on the side, and they'd be like, no, we can't. Ethics. They had this ethical thing where they couldn't take food or drinks, and like this is Guam, all right, where it's kind of rude to not take food or drinks when it's being offered to you. But they're like, oh no, we have our journalistic ethics. So I was like, if you've got these ethics going on, how in the fuck is Rendrati that fat? I don't understand. How the fuck did she become the size of the planet Jupiter if she didn't go around, rolling around and making her revolutions around the sun at all of these fiesta tables? And what did she say? I have ethics? No, bitch, you have a girdle, not ethics. And I never understood that. And then just the irony of it all, that they won't take food or drinks from a fiesta table, yet they're so high up in their journalistic ethics that they will refuse to run a story about Rendrati's best friend, James Hubert, because he's Rendrati's best friend. Yet everybody else who does wrong, allegedly, in this community gets plastered on the front page, including an 18-year-old boy for marijuana. Oof. Jesus Christ. Congratulations to the people of Guam for the passage of the marijuana bill into law. Governor Lou Leon signed it. And in a little bit, we'll be speaking with Senator Clint Rigel live about what that means, what you can do now, what you can do as personal cultivators, and we'll see what the law says with Senator Clint Rigel. Now that we're done with the butterball turkey, let's talk about a missing pet. A family needs your help, and every night we're going to do this. Every night we're going to feature a missing pet. A family needs your help. Do we have the graphic on the screen? Sure. There's a missing dog whose name is Laddie or Latte. I'm pretty sure it's Laddie, right? Laddie is still missing. This was as of Friday from Carlotta. I'm sorry if I get your last name wrong. Carlotta Biasbus. If you have seen her, oh, it's a girl. If you have seen Laddie, please contact me at 689-1430 or private message her. Thank you. She has a light pink collar. Last time she was seen, she's very nice and friendly. She was last seen on Finley Road in Agate. Please, if you've seen her, if you think you've seen her, contact 689-1430. The picture's on the screen. She looks like she is a very light brown color. Oh, there's a kid in the picture. This kills me. Like, this would just ruin my world if this ever happened to me. So, just leave it on the screen. Leave it on the screen so people can see this longer. 689-1430. This is an agate. Dogs can travel far. If a Saki Melania took this dog, the dog could be anywhere. So if you see a dog matching this description, it looks like this dog, might still have the light pink collar on, goes by the name of Laddie. She's very nice and friendly, so she'll likely come up to you. Please call 689-1430. Thanks to our Facebook patrol, we were able to, or we got a picture of what seems to be an abuse of government resources. And if I'm not mistaken, the trucks that were given to each of the mayor's offices were the result of a federal grant. And so these are trucks paid for with federal monies, and so there are very strict guidelines as to how these trucks need to be used. And this picture that you're gonna see on the screen is a government-issued truck to the mayor's, pulling a private boat filled with a tulai out of the water during government hours on a working day. Now, I'm told that a tulai made its way to the governor's office, so while it can hardly be stated that this was for some sort of government purpose, because I didn't see anywhere in the budget description for, a tulai. This is the kind of shit that we need to call out, people. This is when you send these pictures of abuse of government resources, because it doesn't belong to the government. This is the abuse of taxpayer resources. This is the abuse of the taxpayers' trust that they mend or that they create with the federal government or whoever the grantors are who give us money. This is the abuse of that trust and the abuse of these resources, and it needs to be called out because that old shit about, oh, it's cultural, oh, it's a reciprocal. No, it's not. No, it's fucking not. It's stealing from the taxpayers. That's exactly what that is. I got some props. Before we call Senator Clinton Ridgell, I wanted to show you some of the stuff that we have here tonight. I found a doll of Paul Solis. Yeah. And if you question it long enough, it cries like a little crybaby Sally. And then I found I found this neat little, see that? Like, it blows the hot air away from Adeloop, as Janella is lying to my fucking face and to this audience's face about all the shit going on with Paul Solis' whore wife, Darlene Solis, and we'll get to more of that tomorrow in another live phone call to Janella. I just want her to know I'm going to call her live so that she doesn't go crying about it. And then earlier today, I found this cute little creature that looks like, former First Lady Christine Calvo when she has beer. And then, it even does this thing to show former First Lady Christine Calvo when she doesn't have beer. Isn't that cool? Christine Calvo with beer. Christine Calvo without beer. Let's call Senator Clinton Ridgell. Talk about weed. And I promised him I wouldn't make Christine Calvo jokes while I was on the phone with him, so that's why I needed to get that shit out of the way. Hold on, let me get his number out. Okay, here we go. Hi, Senator.
Hi,
this is Troy.
Hold on, 5 minutes? Or are you live right now? Or?
I'm live right now, but I can call you back in 5 minutes. I can make fun of Christine Calvo for 5 minutes before you get on the line.
5 minutes, please.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, bye. Okay, we're going to call him back in 5 minutes. I didn't actually prepare for this, but I'm sure I've got some fat jokes or drunk jokes or something. Later tonight, or after our call with Senator Clinton Ridgell, we're going to go to, I'm going to lay out the story of the Port 7 in chronological order and give you sort of the cliff notes of it so that it's a little easier to understand and how exactly John Bell really fucked over some people. Now, all these years it's become so convoluted, and it's because of one thing. Early on in the process, Attorney Mike Phillips gagged the Port 7 and Senator Mary Torres, placed gag orders on everybody at the port, and then, as we've learned, placed a gag order on the Workmen's Compensation Commission over at the Department of Labor. And so all of these different entities that had something to do with the criminal conspiracy against the Port 7 and Senator Mary Torres, they made sure that these people weren't able to talk to each other so that all the pieces of the truth wouldn't come together as they should have, and basically so that people wouldn't figure it out. And this entire time, the only people who've been talking have been Attorney Mike Phillips and Jo Mann Brown whenever she was able to lift herself to get airlifted out of SeaWorld and be put in front of a microphone so that she could just blah, 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 about everything and anything. And so we'll get to that. We'll get to that after our conversation with Senator Clinton Ridgell, just to keep everyone updated. Earlier today, Governor Lulian Guerrero, to her credit, kept her campaign promise. to allow for the adult use of cannabis if a bill ever were to reach her desk. She said she would sign it during the campaign, and today she signed it at a press conference that was called at Adelup, and she didn't mince any words about it. She said exactly, what needed to be said. She took a stand, and it's very rare that you see politicians take a stand about something, especially something so controversial, and sort of draw a line in the sand that says, you know what, these are my convictions, this is what I believe, this is what I told people, and so I'm going to stick by it. And so kudos to Governor Lulian Guerrero. And I have some issues with her staff lying to the people, but in this instance, from the governor's mouth herself and by her own actions, I think she's done a solid for the people of Guam. Now, this all started not from Governor Leon Guerrero, but from Senator Clint Rigel, who a couple months ago introduced Bill number 32 in the Guam legislature. He's a freshman senator, and when he introduced the bill, I remember messaging him like, right on, Clint, finally someone with, I even put it on Facebook, like, finally a politician who has some balls, because there have been a number of opportunities over the years since the legalization of marijuana has been trending in this country and around the world. A number of opportunities for politicians to do something about it. Some have tried, but no one has taken it as far as Senator Clint Rigel has. No one has fought for it as vociferously as he has. And thanks to that fight, and thanks to his smarts, the research that he's put into things, and the arguments that he was able to make in convincing his colleagues, the bill was passed by the legislature despite some immense odds, and even a fight by the Catholic Church itself. It likes to stick its pedophile nose in lots of things it shouldn't. I think the senator's ready now. Okay, we're gonna call him back now.
Hello?
Hi, Senator.
Okay, I'm ready now. Sorry about that.
You're like the hero of Guam. You're like Clint, the hero of Rigel.
Well, thanks.
Have you been practicing that humble laugh?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still getting used to being called senator.
Well, you know what? It's your office that we have to respect. So I'm gonna keep calling you Senator. I would call you like Mr. President or whatever. So, first off, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, and well, on behalf of many people, thank you. On behalf of others, I won't say what that is, but well, let's start with that. There are people who have concerns, and there's always three sides to a story. You're a former journalist. You're a journalist for life, so you know this, and you know about respecting other people's opinions. But there were some concerns that warrant further discussion, as this law is a new law, and there are things that need to be considered in its implementation. You want to talk to our viewers about any of that?
Sure, yeah, I know that there are a lot of concerns, and I do respect everyone's concerns and everyone's opinions. So, I can bring up some of the specific concerns that have mentioned to me over the course of the discussion on this.
Sure, not the stupid concerns though, just like the real meaningful ones, because some of them are, let's just be frank, some of them are real stupid, baseless concerns.
Sure. Well, I'll just talk, I guess, about some of the ones that I've heard the most. I think people are concerned about the use and about youth consumption, and rightfully so. We don't want our youth to be consuming, any thing, alcohol, for example, tobacco. We don't want our youth to consume those things. But just as alcohol and tobacco is legal, I think that cannabis should be legal, and it is now. Still getting used to it that it just got signed, but. Yeah, I think the road forward now is we need to continue to educate our kids about it. One of the questions was asked to me by an opponent of the measure in the public hearing, and he was a bit upset. He doesn't like the bill, of course, and so he kind of said, in a bit of an angry tone, well, what do you tell your kids if they want to smoke marijuana or something? And I said, tell them not to do it until they're 21 and they can make that decision for themselves when they're 21.
Sure.
In the meantime, they cannot do it. It's my job as a parent to educate my kids about why they shouldn't be doing it, why they're not allowed to do it, and then educate them about all the pros and cons of cannabis. Of course, there are cons. Anything in excess is bad for you.
Sure.
Too much alcohol, too much tobacco, too much sugar in excess leads to diabetes and all kinds of other problems. Too much food leads to different issues with high cholesterol, high blood, and all these other things.
Yeah.
All these other things that are caused by it. But anything in excess is bad. That's what we need to educate everyone about, is destroying things in moderation and understanding that even too much of a good thing can be bad for you. So I think it just comes down to really educating the public about this as much as possible. And I know they're concerned about the youth, but when I also did a lot of research. I looked at states that have legalized it, and youth consumption in the states legalized it either stayed the same as they were pre-legalization, or actually even went down in certain states. For example, in Washington, youth consumption fell after legalization.
Sure.
And then there's a lot of concerns about crime. Well, and rightfully so. People should be concerned about crime, but I think the concerns are misplaced, and I think with more education and if we do this program properly, we won't see an increase in crime. And why I say that is because, again, looking at the statistics in the state, crime didn't increase. And then, specifically in Washington, crime decreased. Specifically, violent crimes decreased. There was a recent study that came out in, I believe, December of last year, or this past December, 2018, that showed a decrease in crime, particularly violent crimes. And the thinking behind that, according to this study, and I'm reading studies that are published in peer-reviewed journals. So people are reading articles, and I've read some of the articles too, and sometimes articles will take only bits and pieces of a study that was done or a survey that was done, but I find the source and then I read the whole thing myself. And so in this survey that was done, in the study that was published, I believe by the Journal of Economic Behavior and something or other, I don't have the full name off the top of my head. This journal, and in that they found that youth consumption dropped as well as violent crimes dropped. And the thinking behind the violent crimes drop, according to this journal, is that people were substituting cannabis for other harder drugs. So people
like alcohol.
Exactly. Alcohol consumption also went down in Washington, as well as binge drinking of alcohol went down in Washington.
Good.
I think that people are substituting cannabis for those things instead of saying, instead of let me down this whole bottle of liquor, why don't I just consume some cannabis, whether it's smoked edibles, and then, you know what, I'm good, and I just relax and chill at home the rest of the night, and it doesn't make you as violent as a lot of these other drugs. People know alcohol makes you violent. Many of the other drugs make you violent. They tend to have more connection to violence, and the data's there, the science is there, and even the anecdotal stories. And when you talk to anyone, what are these stoners about? Is that they're just so laid back, they're so low key and laid back, just chill, man. That stereotype of pot users and cannabis users. And so even when you look at the anecdotal stories, if you talk to anyone, I've talked to police officers and I've asked police officers, who would you prefer to encounter? Police officers are of course talking like off the record. They don't want their name used in any sort of.
Sure.
But
yeah.
I talk to them, say, hey, what would you prefer? Pulling up on a bunch of guys alcohol or a bunch of guys smoking marijuana? And they said, 100 times smoking marijuana. They're easy to deal with. They're not aggressive. They're not resisting arrest. They're relaxed.
They're smiling.
They're smiling. It's the guys on alcohol that they're worried about pulling up on, or other drugs that they're worried about pulling up on that might be more aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, I just to be real here for a second. I mean, a stoner. I think you're not gonna encounter a stoner who's like malagu mumu, huh?
Yeah, exactly. No, I never have.
You're not gonna find a stoner that says to your face, "Jadana no mu diablo." Like that's a drunk right there.
And then he guys like that.
But okay, so I think what some people want to know is before rules and regulations are established through a cannabis commission that still hasn't been set up. Remember, this is a fresh law.
Yes.
What can they do, right? Can you be above the age of 21 and have a joint in your car right now?
I believe you can have it in possession at your house. I don't think you can have it in your car. I need to double check on that.
Okay.
You can have it in possession at your house.
Okay.
I need to double check about in the car because I know there's something in there about transporting it. I need to double check what the language is on that.
Now, if you're on probation, and one of the conditions of your probation is you are not to consume illegal narcotics.
Follow probation's rules, yeah. Just like probation,
Okay.
you have probation and you're not allowed to have alcohol. Alcohol is legal
Okay.
substance, but if you're on probation and you're not allowed to have alcohol, then it's not. So
Then follow the judge's orders.
exactly, still got to
Okay.
follow that. Same thing with work. If your work doesn't allow you to use it, you just can't use it.
Yeah, and that's another thing is people, have your shit together. Don't go to work stoned. The law doesn't allow you to go to work stoned, just like the law doesn't allow you to go to work drunk.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the big things I wanted to treat this the way alcohol is treated, because I think it's less dangerous than alcohol. And the facts show it's less dangerous than alcohol because the facts just show it. There's been so
Sure.
many deaths by alcohol overdose alone every year,
Mm-hmm.
and 0 deaths from cannabis overdose. And it's just data is just there. It just shows that it is a safer substance than alcohol.
Well, because you're just gonna go to sleep before you're even 1/20th of the way to
Pretty much,
overdosing.
yes. That's it.
That's basically it. But okay, what about growing cannabis? So home cultivation for personal use is allowed. There's a threshold or there's a limit, like something like 6 plants or whatever. But
Yeah.
what can you grow marijuana in your home in a controlled, locked area right now?
Yes,
You
can.
can. Okay.
Up to 6 plants, 3 juveniles, 3 adults.
Okay.
As
So you
long
don't,
as it's in an enclosed, secure space that's not in public view.
not in public
So
view.
the interpretation that it's pretty much like indoor in your house is pretty much where you could do it. So it can't be just outside, on your front lawn kind of thing.
So it's even more controlled than alcohol is, because you can have a cooler of beer in your front lawn.
Exactly. And,
Okay.
originally I wanted it to be just exactly like alcohol, but I realized that a lot of people, they're so concerned about this that we had to go ahead and keep some strict guidelines in there because of people's concerns. I wanted it to be exactly like alcohol. I mean, you can have, there's even limits on how much you can possess, right? So you can only have 6 plants, and you can only possess, I believe, an ounce at a time.
Okay.
But alcohol, you can literally own like a wine cellar. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
have kegs of beer stacked up for the party tomorrow. Cases of beer, 30 packs upon 30 packs. Liquor cabinets filled with all the liquor you want. With alcohol, but people are so scared of cannabis that, of course, we had to put in some stricter regulations for cannabis.
President Clinton, yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat, just dying to make a former First Lady joke about all this right now, but I promise you I wouldn't, so I'll zip my lips about that. But one more thing to make clear is that even though you are right now able to grow marijuana in your home in an enclosed area and no more than 6 plants and whatever those regulations are, right, that are contained in the law right now, you can't sell that. That's just for personal use.
Yes, no sales. No one can sell it. You can't sell it to your buddies. You can't sell it to your friends. You can gift it. You can gift it to someone who's 21 years old and say, here, you can share it with them.
But you can't take money for it.
You can't take money for it.
That would make it an illegal transaction. That would make it like in violation of our tax laws or something.
Exactly. It's like you can't sell alcohol without a liquor license.
Sure.
The same thing, that you're going to have a cannabis license to sell cannabis, and that's what the Cannabis Control Board will be for. The Cannabis Control Board will have to develop rules and regulations, and then outline all the details about how to get a license.
Would that make you a really Moschino person if you tried to sell your can of beer from your cooler to someone else?
I know, right? Exactly. It's like selling your beer to your buddy or whatever.
So marijuana dealing is still not legal, at least until you have a business license for it, and that business license isn't going to be available until rules and regulations are promulgated by a cannabis commission. Is that what it's called, Senator?
Cannabis Control Board.
A cannabis control board that the governor has to appoint. Is that correct?
Yes, and she did say that she would begin doing that as soon as possible. So she's
Okay.
going to be working on it.
Very cool. Is there anything else you wanted to add about this? Any sort of educational, anything you want to?
Yeah, Sure. Thank you, Troy. I just wanted to make sure that the public, um, treat this responsibly. Let's not go out and be wild and party hardy and all that. Just be responsible. Be smart about everything you do. Just as you do anything in life. When you're going to
Yeah.
drink alcohol, be smart about it. When you're going to consume cannabis, be smart about it. Don't drive under the influence. And do everything in moderation. And definitely, public consumption is not allowed in cannabis. So don't go out in public and smoke cannabis in front of people's faces, and there's kids around it, and people with families, they don't want their kids to have cannabis in their smoke in their face. So just be responsible, be smart about it. Don't do those things because they're not allowed by the law, and you can get in trouble for doing that.
Plus, weed stinks, and and no one likes a stoned driver. Okay, no one likes the stoners driving at 20 miles per hour in a 35 zone when we all want to go 55. Okay, because that law needs to change too. And if you can work on that, Senator, that would be freaking great. No one likes a stoned driver, okay? Because you're going too fucking slow and you don't even realize it, and the rest of us get road rage. Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
You have a good night.
You too. Good night. Thank
Okay,
you.
bye. I don't know how to release this phone thing. Well, anyway, so that was Senator Clint Ridgell, hero extraordinaire of the people of Guam. Listen, I don't even like weed. I don't care for weed. I think weed makes me really stupid. I don't know about all those studies about psychosis or whatever, but really, people like me just don't. We're not about weed. But what I do like is that the government now is out of my life in that decision-making part of it, where it's no longer about breaking the law to do it. Like, now I have this option legally, and it's my choice. And now it's your choice if you're 21 years or older. Medicinal marijuana is a totally different subject. Okay, that's like between you and your doctor, no matter what age you are. But I appreciate that the government now is going to be out of my life when it comes to that. It's one less thing that the government has control over in my life and in your life. So all around, congratulations and many thanks to Senator Clint Ridgell for fighting for the rights of people to do what they want to do in their own time, in their own space, without bothering anybody else. We're going to move on to John Bell is a Twat, Part 3. Now, I realize that the Port 7 issue is so convoluted, and over the years, the only people who've been talking about it really have been Mike Phillips and Joanne Brown. But early on in this entire thing, there was an incident that happened, which is the basis for this entire thing, and then there was an investigation that happened, and the person who was behind that investigation was a twat named John Bell. Wait, give me a second to light a cigarette and catch my bearings, because that was a great conversation with Senator Clint Ridgell. Just give me a 20-second break here. I know he was talking about, when he started talking about tobacco abuse, I was like, but then, maybe he saw him at the face I made, and so he started talking about alcohol abuse even more. And then I had 50 fucking jokes to make about Christine Calvo, and I fucking promised him that I wouldn't. And so, it was just come on, man, come on, crack a joke yourself about Christine Calvo being a fucking drunk. He didn't, of course, because he's a gentleman and a statesman and hero extraordinaire of our time. But I'm not. I'm not ice. Hashtag I was nice on ice. And now, as everyone wanted, I'm sober. And so here I am, world. So, on September 22, 2011, this story doesn't actually start with Bernadette Meno slipping and falling in the second floor women's restroom at the Port Authority Administration building. Am I looking at the right camera? This story starts a few minutes before that slip and fall with Anisha Terlahi, who was the deputy manager of the Port Authority, and because for some strange reason she felt that she needed to clean the women's restroom on the second floor. It's the restroom that she, as the deputy general manager, would have used. And so Anisha sprays Fabuloso on the floor. Okay, and I guess she just didn't fucking know that it makes the floor super slippery. So a few minutes later, Bernadette Meno enters the women's restroom, and she flies so. She goes airborne. Both her feet fly off the ground, and she lands on her back, and she tries to save herself with her arms. So that's why her arms got all fucked up, but her back still hit the ground. And she had just given birth a few months prior to this. So the fall was bad enough that she felt the need to report it. So a few minutes later, when she gets back to her office, she brings her assistant Josette Havalosa into the bathroom, and she's like, Josette, what do we do about this? Can you just like step one foot onto the floor, but don't go all the way in because it's really slippery. And so Josette does that. As soon as Josette's foot hits the floor of the bathroom, it slips. So she slides. And so even Josette's like, oh yeah, that's really slippery. We need to tell the safety office about this and call the janitorial office. And so Bernadette writes an email to Frank Roberto, the safety administrator, also known as Abbott in the Abbott and Costello series. Frank Roberto, the safety administrator, he receives this email from Bernadette where she says, I was in the women's restroom, I slipped, I went airborne, I fell on my back, I got some pain, but I think I'm okay, but I think someone should mop up whatever that is that's on the floor that is making it really slippery. And so Frank Roberto writes back in this email, and he says to her, I'm very sorry that happened. I'm going to send what's her name to go clean the restroom right now, and I'm sending Paul Salas to investigate this and take the report. And so Paul Salas, he does that. He makes a report to Frank Roberto, and his findings are that yes, there's a slippery substance, and yes, it's slippery, and it was cleaned up, boss, and whatever, right? Frank Roberto then instructs Leon Guerrero, his assistant at the safety office, to write up a workman's compensation claim. And so on that day, she has drawn up Workmen's Compensation Commission Form 101A, 201, and 202. 101A is the report to Workmen's Comp of what happened. There's a 101B, but that's the form that the doctor fills out, whatever doctor the employee goes to, and that form is what the doctor gives back to Workmen's Compensation that says, this happened, this injury is what happened, and as a result of this, the injury resulted from whatever happened at work. So it's a Workmen's Compensation thing, right? The 201 and the 202, I can't remember exactly what those are, but they're these forms that you have to fill out, right? And so they were filled out on that day. 4 days later, that was like a Thursday, so 4 days later, Monday, it was faxed to the Workmen's Compensation Commission office within the Department of Labor, and there's a record of this, right? So Bernadette Meno doesn't think at this time that there's a need for her to seek further medical attention because, it just doesn't seem like it wasn't too bad, right, at the time. In July, she has this attack. And as a result of other medical conditions, she coughs. And when she coughs, there is this radiating pain at her lower back, and she can't move, and she's screaming in pain. And so an ambulance is called, and she's taken to GMH right away. And so one thing leads to another. She has her personal doctor, or the doctor who she always goes to, or whatever. And that doctor makes a referral to a spinal doctor, and then the port clears her to see Dr. Hayashida. This wasn't Bernadette Meno's choice. It was the port. The port was the one that said, go see Dr. Hayashida. So she does, and Dr. Hayashida finds that she has a herniated disc. And as a result of the fall on September 22, 2011. Um, her lower, I think it's called the lumbar or something. It's one of those lower spine column things, is pressing against her spinal cord. And that's the source of this immense pain that she's going through. So they have to put her on morphine and all this stuff, right? Like these are all, I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for saying all these things because they're kind of medical, but you know, we're trying to help here. So we're trying to expose the truth here. So Dr. Hayashida says we have to do surgery. We have to operate on your back. So schedules her for surgery where he's going to be in Hawaii where the equipment is and all this stuff on August 23. So on August 14, 2012, just, what is that, 9 days prior? Fabuloso chick, Deputy General Manager Anisha Terlahi, requests for a travel authorization for Bernadette Meno, and all these workmen's compensation documents are part of this record for Bernadette Meno to travel to Hawaii for her surgery with Dr. Hayashida on August 23. She's to be accompanied by somebody. Her husband wasn't able to accompany her because they have kids, young kids in school, and they need to be cared for. And so Bernadette chooses for her niece to go with her to Hawaii. And then a nurse also needs to accompany the whatever, right? This is all part of the process. This is all standard stuff, right? Her travel allowance, or the per diem that she's given, is signed off by a woman named Frances Ariola. Now, Frances Ariola was not the Personnel Services Administrator of the port at this time. That person was Francine Rocio, but Francine Rocio was on leave because her husband was sick. And so she wasn't even at the port during this. Her signature appears nowhere. It's Frances Ariola, and because Frances Ariola didn't know as much as Francine Rocio, she makes an error in the calculation of the per diem. So instead of a per diem of like $90-some, she places on this document that Bernadette is to receive a per diem of $200. And mind you, Bernadette is not the person who sees this document. This is an internal port document that goes through different channels. And so the only thing that she's supposed to see is a check for her per diem and a ticket for her travel, which was a ticket on economy class from Royal Travel Services, if I'm not mistaken. It's a travel agency. It gets approved by General Manager Mary Torres, who has to authorize the funding. Before she approves it, it needs to be certified that the funds are available, and the funds were available certified by a guy named Jojo Guevara, the financial services manager. On August 18, that document, as with any other document requesting for travel or any kind of funding whatsoever from the government, goes through, and this was a secret process. This wasn't something that was anywhere in paper, but it's a secret process where all of these agencies had to send all these documents to the governor's office. Rose Ramsey was the acting chief of staff at the time, and as the acting chief of staff had to sign off on these documents. She sees this document, sees the amount, and questions it, and because it's Bernadette Meno, who is a political adversary of the Calvo administration, she becomes hypersensitive to it. So she calls me, she asks, what is that? And I said, I don't know, I've never seen anything like this, because I'd never seen anything like it. Well, why don't call Mary Torres, ask her what this is about, because Mary signed it or whatever. But Mary Torres was off island. And so Anisha Terlahi, who is the person who sprayed the Fabuloso and was afraid that she would be sued for spraying the Fabuloso, she all of a sudden changes her tune about this authorization, and she's the person who requested the travel authorization to begin with. So that was August 18. On August 19, Governor Eddie Calvo orders an investigation into this whole thing. Between August 19 and December 12, an investigation happens. Prior to an investigation even starting, Mike Phillips, Dan Tidinko, and everyone, they had already decided that they were going to get rid of Bernadette Meno, And as it turns out, Vivian Leon and 5 others, Francine Rocio, the personnel services administrator who wasn't even at the port when this whole thing was happening, Francis Ariola, her assistant, Jojo Guevara, the person who certified the funds, Leonora Leon Guerrero, the person who signed that 101A, 201, and 202, those forms to the Workmen's Compensation Commission, the person who was directed by Frank Roberto, or Abbott, from Abbott and Costello, to do this. In the midst of this investigation, those documents go missing. The documents that Leonora Leon Guerrero had faxed to the Workmen's Compensation Commission, the record just vanishes. And so the original story that John Bell furnishes to everybody is that this slip and fall never even happened, and that there is no documentation whatsoever that the Workmen's Compensation Commission was notified of anything. And in the midst of that, Joanna Fullerton, who is the administrator for the Workmen's Compensation Commission, is threatened not to speak about anything that was happening because, the FBI is now involved in whatever. So they came up with this elaborate scheme. This is John Bell. John Bell hid these documents. He knew that they existed, and he hid them in the investigation. For what reason, we're not sure, except that in his comments to the Guam Bar Association and the ethics complaint that was made against him, he admits point blank that the reason that the investigation took the course that it did was because that was the order that came down from Adelup. It was the order to get rid of these people. There was a predetermined resolution that they needed to arrive at. And that is why John Bell did what he did. So he committed all of these illegal acts. He fabricated, first he hid these documents, he got rid of them, to say that Bernadette Meno, Vivian Leon, Mary Torres, and all of them, they conspired to give Bernadette Meno all of this money, when really all she was doing was trying to get her back fixed because of a slip and fall that did happen on September 22, 2011. It was documented by Leonora Leon Guerrero, and when they went to when John Bell and Mike Phillips went to Leonora Leon Guerrero, when the documents finally surfaced, they were in panic mode, and they went to her and they said, you need to sign this affidavit that says that you were pressured by Vivian Leon and Mary Torres to sign this 101A and 201 and 202 or whatever, and say that they were the ones who pressured you or else, and that you fabricated this document. And if you sign this affidavit, we will give you your job back, as though they were doing her some favor. But then, because this woman has integrity, she said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's a lie. I'm not going to lie. She lost her job. Not only did she lose her job, but Mike Phillips told Frank Roberto and Paul Salas to tell the Civil Service Commission that Leonora Leon Guerrero lied 37 times. They tried, they're still trying to prosecute this woman. They're trying to prosecute all of them. And all of the documents that have surfaced are showing that the lies started with John Bell. That's how much of a motherfucker he is. And really, these aren't the only people who John Bell has hurt. We haven't even really begun to discuss what he's done to Joanna Lynn Fullerton, that poor lady at the Workmen's Compensation Commission who's just doing her job. We haven't begun to discuss what she's done to the details of what she's done to a young family who owned a small business, and he represented some toxic people who raked them over the coals financially. Or the issue with the representation of a widow from the Benson accident that happened a few months ago, where a man was killed in their warehouse, and how money that was supposed to be paid to the widow never made it to the widow. We're going to get to all of that along with John Bell's military record in the days to come. But I wanted to make it clear exactly what we were talking about here with the Port 7 and how it all started, because the missing link in this entire discussion has been John Bell, that greasy ass motherfucker. He's just been a complete asshole this entire time. And you know what? I certainly do believe in karma. I believe in that whole, like, what goes around comes around shit. Well, obviously, you know, I very much believe in that because the universe has been pretty damn good this past year to me, you know, from what happened last year. And sometimes karma just needs a little push, you know? Like, bitch, you know, you gotta get off your stone ass and get going and start this shit. Let me help you. And that's what our job here at Kandit is. So thank you all for your time tonight. I hope this was a good show for you. I hope this was informative. Good night and God bless.
That's all.
Union, which exposed the
That's all.
exploitation.
That's all. That's all. That's all. That's all. That's all.